Action. Hello everyone. Here's the short video I promised you of my self-portrait and some of the things I deal with. Over the last year, everyone I've talked to and have shared their stories with me have really become an inspiration for me. Um, in the meeting, I had mentioned that I personally wasn't going to do a self-portrait. In retrospect, I'm so glad that I did. It had pros and cons. It brought up not only a lot of memories, it brought up some emotions that at least I thought I dealt with at the time. But some things resurfaced, nothing too bad, but just enough to make me think and really realize why I am not only painting a self-portrait, but why I'm involved with surviving with cannabis. What most people don't know, as a child, I was bullied, I was picked on, and as I got older, it brought a lot of PTSD to me. What made it real bad for me personally was I was picked on by family members. It was hard growing up in a big Latino Chicano family with the last name Canada. I was always the honky, the white boy. They didn't, in a sense, accept me for some reason, and unfortunately it turned into me looking for acceptance. It was hard, but it was also the stepping stone that would lead to my next adventure in life, which was as I got older and people who would accept me. I've personally never been in a gang, but I knew lots of gang members, and I've seen lots of gang violence. And reason being is, as most people may know, gangs will accept you. They have no problem with that. They'll use you until they have no need for you no more. I've lost a lot of friends through gang violence, and truthfully, I've seen people killed, and nothing can take those images away. You tend to build up calluses on a reality of life out there. You know, I think for me, at least the way a lot of what America is in society, and a lot of the mass shootings, they affect me in a couple different ways. It's heartbreaking to watch, but there's also a part of me that is kind of like, you know, it doesn't affect me mentally in certain ways, because like I said, there's some calluses there that maybe only people in war have seen. Losing a friend, seeing violence, and that's how it comes out. It comes out in PTSD. It comes out in mentally struggling and comprehending things, and looking for treatments. So that's a lot of the things that I've dealt with. PTSD is one of the main things that I've dealt with over the years. The triggers can be anything, such as I said, something on the TV dealing with a mass shooting, maybe even hanging out somewhere and listening to someone talk about the old days and having them not understand, or that individual not really growing up into adulthood, still feel like they're 17. They're very proud of what they were as kids. So I really try to distance myself from those people, and whatever they feel their reality is. With that, came bouts of depression, not feeling good enough, not feeling accepted. Being really down on myself was one of the hardest things that I have, and at times I do deal with in life. A little bit of artist depression, of course, but waking up in the morning and just feeling hopeless and sad and not wanting to be productive, and really kind of having to focus on being positive and finding positive things in your life, and really trying to transform it and move it back into the positive area of happiness in the reality. And that's, to this day, one of my biggest struggles is depression, from moderate to very extreme. um, Obviously, that's one reason why I do art. It is the biggest outlet I can have in life, um, to be able to create something after, looking at the failures in my life of hurting people. Um, there's always a way to try to give back, and I've tried to do it in a number of different areas. Um, a lot of people don't know that I'm one of the founding members of GRASP, which is Gang Rescue and Support Project. It not only helped individuals who are involved in gangs, but family of gang members and people who had lost family members to gang violence. It was constructed by me and several of my friends, and a Denver district attorney, a Denver public schools teacher, and many psychologists in the early 90s. Um, Once I bowed out of that, and actually it still continues to this day. Cisco Gallardo runs it, but it really helps people who are stuck in that situation, who are stuck in that mindset, who are stuck in that family sometimes, who feel that's what life is and this is what you have to be. Let me get back on track here. This is all a la carte, so I may be all over the place. But at least dealing with depression for me, it's one of the hardest things, and what scares me the most is the unknown. We all have read the stories or seen the news about a celebrity who suffered from depression and went to the extreme. That is the unknown. We all know that we don't know what tomorrow brings, and I'm not trying to be negative or sound negative, or just an FYI, I'm not going down that path. But there's an unknown to it. You don't know how it affects people mentally unless you actually suffer from it, and have been in the place of just feeling worthless, lonely, unproductive, and just full of despair that it eats you up on the inside. Now, through great support and really reaching out to people and being diagnosed as a depressant, it helps. It really helps get a lot off my mind, being able to talk about it, talk about situations. But like many people, oh, well, we want to put you on this drug, or we want to put you on that. And, it made me worse. Luckily enough, I was using cannabis prior to a lot of this anyway. I started as a young age, 9. Don't recommend that anyone has their kids starting that early, but that was my situation. I really started using more about 14, 15, teenager, and then I actually quit for a long time, which brought a lot of that anxiety and anger back. I didn't have no way to really deal with it or to soothe it. Cannabis was the answer. And at the time, 15, 20 years ago, I didn't know that's what it was doing for me. When you go cold turkey, there's going to be a cause and effect, and the effect was, I feel myself getting angry easier, very more frustrated, didn't have an outlet to step back and regain who I was as an individual. So that's a lot of the reasons why, I use cannabis. As I've gotten older, it's turned into a little bit more of THC CBD, to deal with my anxiety and, really having to focus on unfortunately, the real world out there. There's not a whole lot out there that I like being involved in. It's nuts out there. And I tell my kids this every time they leave the house, I love you, be careful, people are crazy. And there's a truth to that. You never know anymore. And my biggest concern is for them. And that was one of the biggest changes in my life is my boys, and being able to not only as any parent give them what I didn't have, but in many ways really give them the emotional support that I didn't have. It was a real awakening to be able to understand that they count on me. And not only am I there to give them advice, I'm there to teach them to be their own person, individuals, to be creative, to really embrace life and see the best in it. And that's a whole different challenge for any of you that may have kids. I have stated before that, you know, I'm a little bit OCD, so that's a whole different struggle of just having to let go. And, you know, that's something minor, but it does affect me. It's very, I guess, if anything, it's very mentally challenging. I don't think anyone needs to truthfully have a pen in the same spot every day, and if it's not there, to actually kind of go nuts of where the hell is my pen, just because, you know, I bought it or it's special to me, and, you know, really blow a gasket, as one would say, over it. And I've done that. But that's a little bit about me. Of course, as we all get together, there's obviously some pieces missing that you may have questions on, or, you know, something that you may not know. I think the biggest thing that I could answer for everyone is the name Gonzalez. To try to make it as understandable as I can. It's like a novella, you know, big soap opera. My mom was married at a young age. I have 4 older siblings from that marriage, 3 brothers and a sister. Now, mentally, I can see where some of my stuff comes from. You know, my genes, the genetics of life, the DNA of anger, depression. What people don't know is that my real father, he's not a very nice man. And I think what hurts me the most, at least when I have to bring him up in conversations or deal with him in conversations, is that everyone feels the need to stick up for him. Oh, that's just his way. He's old school. Well, you know, he's an asshole. That's the bottom line. And I am lucky enough to not have had to grow up with him. Now, being an asshole, you know, he wasn't the nicest person to my mom. Mental abuse, physical abuse. And when my mom decided to leave him and actually remarry to who I consider my father, Michael, I will, you know, say his name because I'm proud of him. He's taught me everything I've known, you know, but it then turned into real anger because she left him, remarried, and was happy. It then turned into not only mental and physical abuse, it turned into sexual abuse. To put it simply, I am a product of rape. My biological father raped my mother, and my stepfather, Mike, who I consider my real father, he knew, and he gave me everything. He loved me. As I said, you know, he taught me everything, you know, I know. He taught me how to build things and work on things and figure things out, and, you know, really put me on a path to manhood. And as I got older, I think one of the things that, at least dealing with PTSD or even just the depression part of it, is my biological father has always been in my life, even since I was a kid, because of my older siblings. I've known the Gonzalez side of my family since I was a kid. I've spent time with them. They're not distant from me. They know who I am. And the funny thing is that they all accepted me. Now, at least dealing with my biological father, it was one of those things that I want to say, I guess, and I can't speak for him, of course, so this is all kind of ad lib. But, I'm wondering if there was a side of him that didn't want to take responsibility for me. And in many ways that's okay. Like I said, my dad, Mike, really loved me. But, after really spending time with my biological father and really getting to know him as, a relationship, a lot of his nastiness popped out, and just who he was as an individual. And I think if anything, I'm more honored that my mom and my dad Mike sheltered me and kept him away from me, because I have no respect for the man, but I do have respect for the Gonzalez name. Now, my grandparents, Ramon and Carolina, were great people. I never met them, but they were humanitarians. They gave, and I'm proud to be part of that lineage. My grandfather Ralph was a very smart man. Should have been an educator at the collegiate level somewhere, but he loved me. He taught me the basics of music, taught me the piano, really taught me how to play the guitar in many ways, art, the whole bit. Would get me into reading. But it was funny to know, and especially at a young age, probably about 12, maybe 13, I knew that Mike wasn't my dad. Sixth sense kicked in. And as I started asking questions and realizing the truth, it was also one of those things to where I still felt like I was hidden. No one really wanted to admit the situation that had happened 45 years ago, I guess, to put it simply. But that's one of the biggest things. I think at this moment in my life, that's something that I kind of deal with still. Obviously, it's kind of numbing to realize that, there may be an area of not only being a whoops baby, but how the whoops came about. But it's weird. It's funny to realize that the support from the Gonzalez side has always been there for me, and the best way for me to honor the man who raised me is I use his name. So legally, my name is Canada, Michael Canada. Heritage-wise, it's Gonzalez. I've used the name Canada for probably about 38 years prior to my biological father actually accepting or pretending to accept that, I was his, and saying, oh, well, we need to do DNA tests. I need to know for sure, when everyone in the family knew right off the bat. But, and that's the honor to my father, Mike. Like I said, he is my father. I don't have any questions or arguments about, who I am as an individual. I know my heritage on my mother's side, my father Mike's side, and my biological father's side as well. I'm very well rounded in that, and it's been an up and down roller coaster for me personally, from being picked on to gangs and drugs and violence and, you know, finding out that you're a product of rape, and really trying to put all that into some sort of perspective of being an individual and finding your own path and making your own mark in life. But that's a lot of my story. And as I said, you know, we can touch on some other areas of it when we get together. But you know, for the moment, I want to show you my self-portrait, where I am on it. As I said, it's pretty much finished. Some odds and ends, at least dealing with oil. One thing I love about oil, it creates great depth. The bad thing about oil, since it doesn't technically dry like acrylics and takes a little bit longer, the paint will stay wet for a moment. And I can show you an area of why I'm kind of holding on to it for a moment. Let me turn it around here.